guys, Cassandra here. So it's been some time since I've sat down and filmed a video. Today I thought I would talk about moving out. I thought I have some pretty funny stories about moving out and advice and lessons learned along with them. So I thought, why not share that? I have 3 stories that I'm gonna share with you and 3 lessons from all of those stories. For my first story, it starts right off the bat when I was 18. I mean, not right after I turned 18, but several months after, I graduated high school. I spent the whole summer at home, and then I started college, still living at home, and then finally I kind of decided, you know what, I want to move out. So I worked with a couple of friends, one that I went to, well, both that I went to school with. One was the same age as me, and he had never lived on his own either. And then our other friend that we worked with, and he had been living on his own for a while, but his lease was ending and he was looking to move in with roommates. So I was like, hey, this is perfect. I'm gonna move in with 2 guys. Like, we're not best of friends, so we're not gonna fight or get under each other's skin or anything like that. But we work together, so I know they're secure in a job. I went to school with them, we have mutual friends. Perfect, why not? No. No. It was all wrong. Let me set up the scene. So the scene for this, we moved out. Like I said, we all worked together, so we need to be close to work. Our job was in an okay area, but the closest apartment that we found to us was in the worst area, the worst. Our balcony overlooked and was next to this park. There was the parking lot and then the park on the other side of that. And in that park, actually, while I was living there, and this is in the beginning, the first few months, there was a female's naked body found at 6 a.m. in the morning. She was dead. She was murdered. They found her body in the park right next to our apartment. Luckily, none of us were in that park. We didn't see it. We didn't find it. No one we knew. But that just builds this story and the scenery of how horrible this area was that we lived in. So it was all that I could afford at the time. It was all they could afford. So moved out into a bad area, moved out too soon without any planning, and in with people I did not know very well. We're set up. Moved in with them. We didn't know each other too well. So in the beginning, it was great. It was fun. It was getting to know each other, everybody bonding, and we were partying all the time. I was on the winter break, I think, for school at the time. Neither of them went to school, so they didn't have to worry about the things that I did, but for the first few months or whatever, first month, we were just always going out, always having fun. And then I started school and things got different. Suddenly I had to be in bed at a certain time, to wake up at a certain time. I needed to get sleep. My room was right next to the living room. I was like, guys, can I take you to your room? I'm sorry. They started actually asking me to stay other places so that they could party. Oh, can you go stay at so-and-so's house? Or do you mind not coming home tonight? I'm like, I pay rent to live here. You don't want me to, really? You don't want me to stay here? But I was already getting way over just living with them, so I was kind of okay with those, whatever. Have your party, have people over. It's a Monday night, but whatever, So I was home less and less and less. I actually got a lock put on my room door because I started finding out from other friends that they were going into my room when I wasn't home and stuff and taking things of mine. Then unfortunately things got even worse. One day I came home and the electric was shut off, and I'm like, why is our electric shut off? I gave you money for this month, last month. How is it off? What did you do with my money? And here's the mistake I made. It wasn't in my name, because if you're not married, it can't be in both of your names. You have to have the same last name, or it's only one person's name. So I gave cash to the friend that it was in his name and expecting he would pay it. Well, I guess he wasn't paying it. I don't know what he was doing with my money. And he was just like, oh, I promise, I have your money set aside. I'll pay it. I'm so sorry. I just slipped my mind. I'm like, okay, I'll let it slide. Then, a month later, I'm leaving for work one morning. I actually did stay the night there that night. I'm leaving for work one morning, and when I heard a knock on the door, but I was like, oh, maybe that wasn't our door, maybe it was the neighbors. So when I leave, I see taped onto our door a big, thick piece of papers. I pull it off and I start looking at it. It's a notice of eviction. We were being evicted. I started reading through it, freaking out. What the hell is this? Rent hadn't been paid in 2 months, and I'm sitting there wait a minute. I gave him a money order for one of the months, and I gave him cash for the other. Why didn't rent get paid? Where did my money go to? Oh my gosh, I was so upset. I just left to work. I was crying the whole way there because I didn't know what was going on. I texted my roommate. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I promise I'll get it paid. I've just been having money issues, blah, blah, blah. Giving me the rigmarole. I'm sitting there wait, why didn't you come to me and tell me this was going on? What the heck, Anyway, my mom actually ended up picking me up from work. She was so upset that day. I went home. My mom moved everything of mine out, right then there. She's like, no, we're done. Moved me out. And like, I think she called or texted my roommate at the time and was like, you're getting my daughter's name taken off that lease, you're stealing her money. So anyway, somehow he found the money to pay like rent, whatever. I don't know what he'd done with my portion, but I know it didn't go to rent. I heard he was borrowing money from people at what, I don't know. Beside the point, he did take my name off and boom, I was done. I was out of there. But it was the worst. At that point, I don't think I'd been through anything more stressful and scary. Freaking out. Like, I won't be able to get into another place now because that's on my credit history. It scared me so much. I was so upset. And whew, so the lesson I learned there, I was like, take a breather. So the lesson learned there is definitely don't be in a rush to move out. I was in a rush to move out, so unfortunately I moved into the first like seemingly good situation and ended up being the worst for me. My second lesson learned there in advice is, you know, don't move in with people you don't know very well. Like, you know, some people think it works out better because you're gonna all be on your P's and Q's and best behavior, but I mean, the two people I moved in with were on their worst behavior. They could have cared less, you know? And my third piece of advice is don't give cash to anyone. Like, if you have joint bills that you're paying together, like the rent or the electric, don't just give them cash. Don't just give them the money order without it like filled out. I made that mistake, and that's how I could have very easily been, you know, screwed over horribly in that situation. So right from there, I went into my next living arrangement or whatever, which was in with a boyfriend. Well, not in with a boyfriend, but we got a place together. We rented an apartment together in a nice, safe, good neighborhood. It was 10 minutes from my parents, which was great because my original first apartment was on the complete other side from them, so I didn't get to see them as much as I wanted. So I was closer to home. I was in a good, safe neighborhood. I was with someone I knew and could trust with money and everything. So it was good. Everything was great. And it really was. It was great for about a year. And then we signed on to another 6 months. During that 6 months is when things dramatically went downhill. I mean, they were already starting to get to that point, but I think it just kind of, it all hit. So what started happening was, at the time, I wanted to really start pursuing, I was getting closer to 21, I'm like, I want to really start pursuing modeling. I think I want to leave Tucson. You know, all these kinds of thoughts were coming to my head, and I expressed all of them to him, and unfortunately, how cute is that? My dog, sorry. So I started expressing all those things, and unfortunately, you know, he wasn't okay with any of those things, but it would hurt. It really would hurt. It started to really feel uneven, and that started to really start to get to me because I'm like, wait, I support you in everything you want to do, and you don't support me in all the things I want to do. So then I started kind of thinking about future. really started diving into the future. What do I want for my life in 5 years? What do I want for my life in 10 years? What do I want in 20 years? And, you know, I started trying to talk with him about these kinds of questions, and I just realized we weren't on the same path. When I asked what do you want to do in 5 years, it was kind of like a, I don't know. Where do you want to be in 10? What about this? What about that? And it just felt like I was with someone who didn't think and plan long term, didn't have goals or things for the future. It was kind of like, I don't really want to think further than next year, you know? And I wasn't okay with that. I'm very much someone who likes to visualize and see things and have long-term goals, short-term goals, and constantly push myself and grow. And I felt like I was really with someone that wasn't doing that, and it was starting to really start to weigh on me. It's starting to really get hard to be somebody who sets goals for myself and reaches and accomplishes things when the person that I was with wasn't doing it for themselves. And it was really hard. It was an unhappy breakup, but we broke up, went our separate ways. So it is, you know. But I learned a very valuable lesson there about just relationships in general, moving in with someone you're dating, and that is to not live with someone until you've discussed those long-term, short-term goals. Do not move in with your significant other if you haven't, because you could save yourself a whole lot of heartbreak if you don't move in with them and you've already said, what are your long-term goals? Where do you want to be in 5 years, 10 years, this, that? What do you want to do? What do you want to not do? And discuss those things. If you haven't had those conversations, they're just going to come up later when you're actually living together, and it's just going to make the breakup process and the pain that you're going to go through and all that so much more heavier, so much more of a bigger burden, and it really does suck. So that was something really huge and valuable that I learned from that situation was don't ever move in or get too crazy serious, you know, in general with somebody that you aren't on the same page. You got to be on the same page. You got to have, you know, like minds and minds that are headed on the same track, or else you're just going to go the opposite directions. So now at this point, gosh, I've been living out of home for about 3 years. Yes, these stories are in order as well. So at this point, I've been living out of home for 3 years. I'm about to, I have turned 21, and I move in with my best friend. Set up the scenery here. I was even happier because I moved even closer to my parents. So it was an even better, safer neighborhood. And I was very close to my family, so I could literally ride my bike over to their house all the time and visit them. And that just made things a blast. We had been best friends since middle school, so I thought, you know what, this is the perfect situation. Like, we've been friends for a really long time. You know, I've been doing this for 3 years now. I think I got it down. I know how to financially budget. It's getting the hang of living on my own, if you will. So I was like, I think I'm getting the grasp of it. Fortunately, I did not realize my best friend had never lived on her own yet. This was her first time. So we were moving into an apartment together. I had lived on my own for 3 years. She had been living at her parents' house. She'd never done it yet. This was her first time. So we both had just turned 21. So it was like right off the bat, like big party. Fresh 21, woo, party all the time. So much fun. Unfortunately, things very, very, very quickly started to get hard. Because she had never lived on her own, she did not know how to budget money very well. So it'd be like, hey, I have extra money this weekend. Let's go out. What about you? Oh, yeah, I do. And it wasn't the case. And then we had a bill to pay that Monday or whatever. And, oh, hey, can I have your half of it? I'm kind of short. How are you short? You said we were fine to go out this weekend. Okay, so I would pick up. So, you know, I started realizing, okay, she's not quite grasping, you know, money, financial savviness. So I'm like, okay, you know, it is her first time. I'll try and be helpful, blah, blah. But it's hard. It's hard to teach somebody who learned, you know, from being on your own and learning from trial and error. At that point, I had now had a car. My car was having a lot of issues and problems. I was having to put a lot of money into it. You know, I was trying to pick up a second job. I was getting back into school. So I had a lot of stuff going on. And trying to help somebody else financially that's not saving money properly or putting away money properly was really, really hard and became stressful really quick. Then we piled on top of that we were best friends. The person that I usually go to was right there living with me. So like I said, she had never lived on her own or anything before. So on top of all the weird things with money, there was also issues with like cleanliness. You know, she lived with a mom who had pretty much done a lot for her. So she didn't really help out with dishes. She didn't take initiative to pick up things when we ran out. Like, oh, we ran out of toilet paper. I'll pick that up on the way home. No, it was just left out, you know. There was just a lot of things that just didn't come natural or as second nature. And it started to almost feel kind of like, I hate to use this word, but like parenting your best friend. Because here I am, I'm used to these kinds of things. Like, okay, we ran out of this. I'll pick that up when I come home because I saw that. But then I come home and there's other things I didn't realize that we'd run out of or we needed. And she didn't, you know, bother to say anything or take the initiative to get them herself. Oh, okay, this spilt. I'll mop it up. She didn't take initiative to mop things up. So it started to really get tiring. You're picking up for someone financially. You're cleaning up after them. You're buying all the groceries and food after them. It's like, wait, hold on, I didn't sign up to be a mom here. This is weird. So on top of that, you're best friends with this person. They're not used to living on their own. They're not used to doing these things. And it honestly just became fights, disagreements, irritation, stress, all of those things. Went our separate ways after this. I ended up moving to Phoenix. She stayed in Tucson. We just kind of let the friendship die. Like, that was it, you know? And it sucks. It really does. So the lesson I definitely learned there was don't move in with someone that's never lived on their own before when you have, because you're going to be in for like a whole nother level of stress. Like, you know, babysitting someone financially basically, and, you know, cleanliness and all of those other things that they're not used to having to do because their parents aren't around to do them for them. Second, don't move in with your best friend. Just don't. You know, you just open up a whole possibility of too many disagreements and too many bad habits that you don't like, and unfortunately they can become deal breakers, or they can become fights that are unmendable or strain that's unfixable, you know. So those are like my 3 top stories, and it's funny because they were all in order and they were all from the time I moved out until the time I moved to Phoenix. And obviously I moved to Phoenix by myself, whoop, whoop, and I haven't looked back. It's been great. So I mean, my number 1 suggestion is if you can afford to, move out by yourself. But if not, make sure you move in with good people that you know pretty well, that aren't your best friends, that are maybe a significant other that's going on the same path as you, and you should be fine. But otherwise, move in by yourself. It's the best thing ever. But those are just like my 3 stories with my 3 huge lessons that I learned. Unfortunately, you know, kind of learned them the hard way, and that can suck sometimes, but you know, hey, if I can tell these stories and they can be of help to somebody else, and if not, I hope that you just got some ridiculous story time out of it. And yeah, I don't think I have anything else to say, so I'll see you in my next video, guys. Bye!